All right, today we are going to learn about Fio Fieri Factus Sum. And we've actually, those of us who were in Latin 1 last year, have seen this before. You might remember quod munus habere vis, and the response, volo fieri, ... whether it's volo fieri medicus, volo fieri agricola, volo fieri magister. This was the question, what job do you want to have? And I want to become a doctor, a farmer, a teacher. So this was a ways back, but what you might not have known then is you were dealing with two different irregular verbs, which we have now learned, volo and the one we're about to learn, fio. So that gives you a little context at what you've seen. So volo fieri was I want to become. Let's look a little bit more in depth. All right, so Fio Fieri Factus Sum. Essentially, this verb is really just going to be the alternative passive forms of the verb facio, facere, feci, factus. Facio, if you recall, means I do, I make. So the passive, or the translation of Fio Fieri, is to be made or to be done, as opposed to do or to make. And when you think of what to be made or to be done means, it really means to become. The soldier is made a leader. Could also be translated the soldier becomes a leader, for example. So you really have those three main translations: to be made, to be done, to become. In addition, in the third singular, and something we'll look at in a bit, and you can see in your notes section, it has the meaning to happen. So that's just when you see the third singular form. All right, and finally, facio, facere, is an third conjugation IO verb, which we can tell because it's a weak E in the second principal part. And it has an IO in the first principal part. And so keeping that in mind, remember we're going to have our typical third conjugation endings, but we're going to occasionally have the I in their stem. And so what are third conjugation endings? Well, in the present tense, what do we typically have? I's and U's. And in the future, what do we typically have? Ames et instead of bobis bit. And the imperfect, we have ebam, ebas, ebat. So all this is going to stay entirely the same for Fio. So while it is an irregular verb, the main irregularity is its sort of interesting translation. That is, as the passive of facio. But in reality, it's going to have almost a linking verb in sense, kind of like sum esse fui futurus, because when you say he becomes a leader, what you're really saying is he is a leader, right? It's similar to that in the sense that in the sentence, the man becomes a leader, both man and leader are going to be nominative, because what you're essentially saying is man equals leader now. Okay, so that's something that we're going to also keep in mind. Fio does not take a direct object because it's intransitive and because it acts as a linking verb. So instead it takes a predicate nominative. All right, let's take a look at some of the forms now. As I already mentioned, now we can see here your typical I's, fis, fit, femus, fitus, and then a UNT in the third plural for the present. So everything is totally standard there. And when we even look at the subjunctive, totally standard. We fear a liar. We're taking the IA because we know that Fio is essentially acting as a third IO verb with its endings. Let's look at the future. Again, just like all these irregulars we've been doing, whether it was volo, whether it was malo, whether it was pharaoh, which we just did, we're going to see ames et in the future, and we're going to see ebam, ebas, ebat in the imperfect. So if we just can group all these words together, it will really help us when we're trying to come up with their future and imperfect forms. All right. And then after that, really, guys, there's just the perfect system, which is just going to essentially function exactly like the perfect system functions for any verb in the passive, meaning facio, facere, feci, factus is going to get its perfect system from that factus plus the varying tenses of sum attached. And you can see all those forms on page 197. It's another great chance for you to review your passive perfect system forms. but there's nothing new, so I didn't put it on this slide. And finally, we have the perfect system. And so moving on to the last page, we're just going to do a little translation practice. I gave you a couple of really simple translation sentences in the notes section of the second slide of this presentation. So if you want to go back and look at those, I would recommend it. But looking at some slightly more complex, if you want to pause the video and try and translate these on your own, now would be a good time. Otherwise, I'm just going to start translating. Okay. All right, so here we have volo fieri melior discipulus. Volo, we recall, is I want. Fieri is an infinitive, completing the meaning of volo. It's the infinitive of fio. So I want to become, I want to be made. So, but become is probably the best translation here, because as we look at the second part, we have a predicate nominative, melior discipulus, renaming essentially the I, which was the subject of volo. So it's I want to become a better student. And so become makes a little bit more sense than I want to be made a better student, right? Become works better from an English perspective. All right, sentence number 2. You should look at and remember read the whole sentence, dux suos orat ut meliores milites fiant, before you try to translate. And if you do so, you'll notice that ut in the middle. You'll notice there's 2 main verbs, orat and fiant. And so hopefully you draw that line to separate the sentence between orat and ut. So you can do the first part in the beginning, make it easier for yourself. The leader begs his own what, you might ask? Well, you see it's a masculine ending, so we're probably going to supply men. The leader begs his own men. And then we have an ut construction here. And so there's 2 options. It's either indirect command or purpose clause. We look at it and we remember there was an oro in the first part of the sentence, I beg, and we think that's probably going to be I beg his own soldiers to do something. Indirect command makes more sense. So we're going to try that first, and ut fiant, he begs his own soldiers to become meliores milites, to become better soldiers. Okay, to become better soldiers. So that would be that translation. And finally, the last one is disce bonos mores ut homo melior fias. Again, this is, if we read the whole sentence, we see that ut in the middle. Probably want to draw a line before it, and we can translate the first part of the sentence, disce bonos mores. Hopefully you can notice disce is an imperative. Learn good habits. And now we got to decide again, is this purpose or indirect command? Because there wasn't a verb of asking, begging, or ordering in the first part of the sentence. We're going to say it's purpose. So it's learn good habits in order to become a better person. And the reason why I said in order to is because the subject remained the same, right? You were saying learn good habits in order to become a better man, because fias is second person singular, and disce is essentially second person singular because it's a command to one person. All right, so learn good habits in order to become a better person. All right, hope this helped, and good luck with the translation practice that you have in your textbook homework.